Welcome to the Addison Bowen podcast, where we talk about what it actually takes to hit your first six or multi-six figures in business. I'm Addison, certified clinical hypnotherapist and online business coach for entrepreneurs. And 3 years ago, I decided that nursing wasn't for me, dropped out of nursing school, and dove into the online space. From free hypnosis audios to unfiltered conversations and business advice, this is the space for you to take radical responsibility towards creating your dream business. Let's dive in. Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have another special guest on today. And this is going to be a super fun episode because obviously at this point I'll have announced that I'm pregnant, but right now I haven't. So I was just talking to Estelle because she's also pregnant, and her whole business model is going from pressure to pleasure in your business and making 5K months and six figures online in coaching. And she also does a lot of reprogramming. So I knew we would align in a lot of things, but then we were talking about pressure to pleasure today. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt that when I found out I was pregnant. So let's dive into that because we're both pregnant right now. She's in her third trimester. I'm in my second. So I'm really excited to tie that into what she teaches her clients and everything today, and just ask her some questions about her journey. And Estelle helps new and emerging female coaches build the strategic and energetic foundations for their six-figure online business. And I just think we're going to align so much. So I'm excited to chat today. And you're obviously a business mindset mentor for purpose-led coaches. So we align there. And I would love to just hear a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get here in the coaching world? I always just like to hear how people made it into this space. And obviously you do NLP and hypnosis and all of those things too. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. As you guys can hear, I am not an English native speaker. I am actually French and German. I now live in South America, in Ecuador, and I have studied in the UK. So I'm like super multicultural. And I'm also highly sensitive. And I think, something that a lot of your audience is going to relate to as well is I always have seen myself as this like high achiever, growing up, it was like Little Miss Perfect, getting the good grades, like doing everything, by the rules, just making my parents, my teachers happy, everyone, later on boys as well. Like it was just, this race constantly to be perfect. And yeah, I think, a lot of the choices I've made in my life were determined by that, by just trying to, get the validation from others. And so this is how I ended up studying politics, even though I wanted actually to study psychology, and I started this like very traditional route to success, like going into corporate, trying to get like a high paying job and all of that. And back then, that was like 7 years ago. I was working in Paris, so freshly graduated, started a really good job on paper. And after just a few months, I felt so miserable. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, this is not success, I realized the big city life, the corporate life, all of that, it was just completely going against who I was in my core. And this is when I started saving up money to leave and to travel to South America. This is how I ended up here, actually. And so I left, I got here, I started meeting a lot of entrepreneurs. And for the first time, I understood that there were other options for me, that I didn't have to work for someone else. And this was like, very mind-blowing for me, because I had honestly never thought of myself as like an entrepreneur, a leader, a business owner, anything like that. I feel like at this point, my creativity had been so pushed down by the system, right? And like academics and all of that. And it was so beautiful to get here and get inspired by all of these people around me that were doing their own thing. And this is how I started thinking, of what I really wanted to do with my life. And that's how I got into the coaching world. First as a health and wellness coach, actually. I had gone through my own journey of like losing weight and taking care of myself and like getting out of addiction and substances and things like that. And so this was the first kind of coaching that I did. And then I moved into career change and finally into business coaching about 2 years ago. So yeah, this is how I got here. Don't know if you have any other questions.
No, that's awesome. Like, I just love hearing people's pivots because a lot of people, that are in the business coaching realm, I feel like they started somewhere else and then they realized this is what they really love and what they
Yeah.
love doing. So it's cool to see like you had the experience of building a wellness business and then career change, which I know a lot of people need support in. And then that kind of, led you here. And I know that you help, entrepreneurs now create six figures with strategy and mindset. So we're very aligned
Yeah.
in that. Tell us a little bit about like the pleasure versus pressure part of your business and how
Yeah.
that kind of bled in.
So when I decided to go into coaching, I think my big focus at that time was like to do something that was purpose driven, and really think of, okay, what is my mission in this world? And I want to have an impact. I want to do something meaningful. And I thought that if I just focus on that, I would be fulfilled. Like, everything would kind of flow from there. And unfortunately, that wasn't my experience. So I started with the certifications and all of that, started putting myself out there on social media. And as I was learning, how to basically grow an online business, I quickly felt super overwhelmed. There was just so much information out there, so many different views, approaches. And, at that point, I still had my good little student identity, from my whole life. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the same thing I've always done because it's always worked for me, right? Like I've always gotten the good grades from doing that. So I'm just going to apply everything that people are telling me. And it didn't work. And it was so frustrating. It was so discouraging. I started beating myself up more and more and more. I couldn't see the results that I wanted to have. I would sign some clients here and there, but some were misaligned, or it was like I struggled to like make consistent sales. I felt very stuck. Like the progress was so slow, and it didn't make any sense to me because I was making, I was putting so much effort into this business, so many hours. The passion was there, the purpose was there, but it was just like, what is going on? Why is this not working? Like, am I not cut out for this? And this is when I actually hired my first mindset coach. And I really got into this whole, subconscious reprogramming work, and then got certified myself and like found a whole new passion in it as well. But I think, for me, it was after like 2 to 3 years in my coaching business when I actually pivoted into business coaching. There was this very intentional decision of like, okay, we're gonna grow, we're gonna be successful, but not like this, like not like by stressing ourselves out all of the time, not by working 24/7, because a big part of owning your own business is like also having that time freedom, and so it just didn't make sense anymore to be hustling so much. And in a way, I'm very grateful that I wasn't successful through the hustle, because I didn't get the proof that that's what you have to do, in order to succeed. And I
Yeah.
think it can be super tricky for coaches who hustle and like actually get big results, because then it can be even harder to like switch your approach. But in my case, it was like, clearly this is not it.
It's not working. Yeah, that's so funny
So
that you say that because for me, the opposite worked. The hustle, the
yeah.
constantly working. So my journey was a little bit different in the sense of I was working constantly and I was reaping really big reward from that. I saw really high income months really quickly, but I had to make that same intentional decision that you're talking about later down the line where I didn't have time for family and friends. I didn't have time to date and I wanted to
Right.
find my husband. I was like, well, I can't find my husband if like I'm working all the
Yeah.
time. My family didn't see me, my health was suffering. I wasn't eating till 3 p.m. So I think people are in those two buckets where they're either
Yeah.
hustling and it's not working, or they're on the other side where it is working, but then they're like, what's the point? So I always say, like, I don't care how much money you're making. If you're unhappy, if it's going to ruin your marriage to keep working that way, if
Yeah.
you know, are stressed 24/7, if you are like literally created a laptop prison where you're always on your laptop, right? So I love all of this that you're saying, because if we look at it from like a subconscious perspective too, when you're in that hustle, you're kind of reaffirming that I have to
Hmm.
do this in order to be successful. Or on the flip side, it's like, I have to do more, I have to do more, I have to do more. I'm
Yeah.
not enough right now to
Yeah.
see success. So all of that brought you to, I'm going to make this like a pleasure filled space where I love what I
Yeah.
do. I have space, I have time, right?
Yeah, and something I want to add here is like for me, like while I had a little, like some successes, some wins, I know that the fact that I was already so overwhelmed, it was definitely repelling more clients and money from coming in,
Yeah.
because like subconsciously I was just telling myself I don't want more clients because I can't keep it up, I can't hold it all, so that was a big thing as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that decision was huge. Obviously, at first it was a bit like, okay, how do I approach this now? Like, how do I make this work? Because obviously strategy matters. I still need to take some kind of action. I can't just like pray here
Totally.
and wait for things to like fall on my lap. And so this is when I started really looking for coaches that were mirroring back that
Mhm.
that approach, that pleasure-led approach to me. And this is when I hired my mentor and worked through all of these things. And this is the beauty of having a mentor. It's that when it comes to the mindset work, like a surgeon can't really operate on themselves. Like you can have your habits and all
Mhm.
of that, it's super helpful, but in order to go faster you're gonna need someone
Oh,
else.
yeah.
Yeah. So that helped me a lot. Yeah.
For sure, that's awesome. Yeah, I think even just like the surgeon analogy is great, but I just see so many mindset coaches that are struggling too, that are like, but I do my affirmations and I'm
Yeah.
doing my own hypnosis tracks, and I'm like, but are you? It's the same thing as business coaching. Like we can't spot our own gaps. We're too close in the noise
Yeah.
when it comes to business strategy. But same thing with mindset. Like, a social media manager might be amazing at strategy with their clients, but then struggle with content themselves. And mindset goes the same way. Like you aren't able to always see your own gaps. Sometimes you need someone else to call you out. So
A hundred
I love
percent.
that. And kind of something similar happened to me in the sense of, well, opposite, because I was working constantly and I was like, I need a reprieve. I need something where I can just like sit down and forget about business and be present. And so that's what led me to hypnosis. And then I got
Mm.
certified, and then I was like, everyone needs this. Like everyone needs subconscious work. Like I can't believe we're not all talking about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love all of this. So, okay, so you leaned into the pleasure over pressure. And
Hmm.
like, what does that look like for you? Like, what is, just for people that are here, like, what does that pleasure look like for you? Because
Yeah.
I think a
What
lot of
does
my
that mean?
audience is on both side, like, or on either sides of the
Yeah.
coin, right? Where they're trying to do more to create success and it's not working, or they're in a place where they're so burnt out and they're like, I can't take on more because I'm already overwhelmed. How can I do more? And so the thought or the idea, because I talk about happiness in business and how, I care that you're actually happy in your business and life. And a lot of times people are like, I don't even know what that feels like. What does that look like? So I feel
Mm.
like we could dive into that a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, for me, the first thing I really needed to get myself behind, I think, was this belief that when you can quality over quantity kind of thing, like do less but better. And that when you actually do less, then, the actions you're going to be taking, they're going to be so much more potent, because when you're just like stretching yourself in and doing a bunch of things, you're doing them at surface level. And so this was the first big realization and thing I needed to like put myself behind, in order to kind of become unavailable for this other belief that had really messed with me this whole time, of like success requires sacrifice, basically, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the thing we've been all conditioned to think, and this is why this happens all of the time, like that all business owners go through that, and so yeah, that was the first thing. I was like, no, actually, yeah, I'm so much more efficient, effective, audacious. Like the things I do land so much more powerfully when, I feel like I have this spaciousness in my schedule, in my mind as well, emotionally speaking. And so, yeah, I think for me, the first step in really creating a pleasure-led business was to create that space and to think, okay, what are the things I'm doing right now that are not necessary, that are busy work, that are fluff, like that I
Mhm.
really don't need to be doing, that I hate doing,
Yeah.
not just because they're uncomfortable. Like you also have to separate the two, right? Like sometimes there's going to be discomfort because you're doing something for the first time, and that's normal. But like what are things that really don't align with my values that I feel like are icky as fuck, I'm sorry, can I swear on the
Oh yeah,
podcast?
for sure.
Yeah, okay, cool.
My one of my programs right now is called Fuck the Messaging Chaos, so
Oh
we're
yeah,
good.
that's right. Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, it was like really looking at the things that I could let go of, that I didn't align with, that I thought were not necessary, and then refine my needle moving skills, And I think for me, like just to be clear, in the way I run my business, I just really focus on these four things. It's like, okay, growing an aligned audience, serving, nurturing that audience, selling to that audience, and then obviously delivering exceptional work, like an exceptional experience to my clients, right? Like
Yeah.
those are the four main things that I want to be doing in my business, and that I feel is going to like bring me sales consistently. The rest, like honestly, I was like, okay, I can forget about this. Like,
Mhm.
and maybe at some point at another stage in my business, I can come back to it. I can try to show up on more platforms or do more or hire someone, things like that. But right now, let's just, be honest, very honest with myself on what my bandwidth is, and just, kind of like narrow it down to these few
Yeah.
tasks. So that
Yeah.
was the first thing. I don't know how you see it. Like, I know you have a very spacious schedule as well. Like, do you have also similar tasks in your business that you focus on?
Yeah, so I have a framework that I give all of my clients and that I follow myself that's pretty similar. I always start with some sort of reprogramming or mindset work or like pouring into myself, like some to just get me in, a good headspace. Yeah, and very similar, like move needle moving. I was going to say that backwards. Activities between like nurturing my audience. So that could be a number of different ways, obviously growing my audience, talking to clients in the DMs that are reaching out about offers, serving my clients. That obviously comes number one.
Yeah.
But something that I do that's a little bit different than I think a lot of people is that I actually start with money generating activities first. So selling and posting content before I actually talk to my clients. Cause I think sometimes when you talk to your clients, you can kind of get so ingrained in what's their strategy, what are they going through right now, and there's a lot of noise in your head.
Mm,
So I actually focus on like those needle moving activities first, and then I
yeah.
pop into like DMs and Slack and stuff with my clients. But yeah, very similar. And I think my whole business model is like the simpler the better. So while I do launch different offers when I have an idea, and I have obviously like more than just one service that I'm selling all the time, they all feel very simple to me. But I think
Yeah.
that the thing that I see a lot of coaches that are trying to hit their first six figures do is that they overcomplicate it at the beginning. So they think, oh, I need, low, middle and high ticket offer. I need this thing. I need to host this challenge. I need to do this masterclass. And they get so overwhelmed. Whereas, 5 or many years into business, your capacity expands. And so you can do more. So now at this point, I'm on TikTok, I'm on LinkedIn, I have a
Yeah.
podcast, I post on Threads, I'm on Instagram, I am on multiple platforms, YouTube with the podcast too. And 3 years ago, I wasn't. Instagram was my
Yeah.
sole platform. So I think that
Exactly.
also giving myself permission to like you said, expand that slowly. Like down the line, I can add these
Yeah.
things down, in, but right now it's not needed. Right now I need to master this one area. I think is so simple. But to answer your question and all of that, I would say like with pregnancy, the thing that was the hardest for me was that my first trimester, I didn't have a lot of energy. I was
Mm.
tired, I was sick, I was nauseous. So my whole schedule flipped in the sense of, okay, I already have spaciousness. I already only take calls 3 days a week. But those days where, I was taking calls, it was like calls were it. And then it was, I'm repurposing content and I'm probably going to lay down because I was just very ill, very, very
Yeah.
ill. And so I like this whole conversation of pressure over pleasure because one of the number one things that I felt initially was like rewiring that pressure because all of a sudden my subconscious was like, you have a human on the way coming that you have to take care of. There's this responsibility here. You have to, you're going to take maternity leave. You didn't plan for that. So there was this
Yeah.
pressure that kind of built up in my head. So the whole first trimester of my pregnancy was really leaning into practicing what I preach, the spaciousness. Like it's totally fine that I'm not selling every day. It's fine that I'm in a
Yeah.
mastermind launch and I don't have the energy right now. I've set my business up to support this. And so, again, I just really like the conversation of pressure over pleasure because it gave me the opportunity to really lean into like what I've built. Even though there were some days that were like, I should be doing more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, I felt exactly the same way, especially in the first trimester. The second one, like, and you're gonna enjoy it so much more. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have so much
I
more
already
energy
am.
again. Yeah, amazing. No, yeah, for me it was rough. Like, honestly, plus like my family came to visit. I was so busy. I had to create like all of the trainings for my signature group coaching program, the Estelle Entrepreneur, and so that meant that I had to like record new trainings every single week. And it was just so much like to do this on top of everything else that I was usually doing. So I definitely had this thought as well of, okay, something needs to change. Obviously, right now I'm recording all of these trainings and it's not going to be like this all of the time. But let's just say, taking care of a baby is basically the time that this is taking me. And it's obviously going to take so much more time than that.
Mhm.
So, it was like this big realization of, okay, even though you feel like you have already made so much space in your schedule and you've already made like a lot of decisions in order for your business to be more enjoyable, which we can get into as well, like more specifically what that means. I felt like, yeah, I need to, like you said, lean even more, even deeper into this approach. Like, this is my opportunity to embody it even
Mhm.
more, right? And it was tough. It was tough. Like, I definitely felt like I still had, these like mindset blocks around success requires sacrifice, or at least, some
Mhm.
effort, like that you cannot be completely plugged out. Um, and then something absolutely beautiful happened. It was like early January. Very consciously, I was like, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a break. Like, I ended my launch, I was like, okay, I need a break right now. I honored that. And I actually ended up, having one of my highest income months so far in my business. And it was like, I think it was just the universe really showing me, like, you can let go. Like, you can chill. You've done enough. You don't need to constantly prove yourself. And take this as a proof that, like, there's, the way you've been approaching your business, you can go even deeper into it, and it's going to be all right. Like, nothing is going to crumble, because I think that was my biggest fear when I found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm finally getting to where I want to be, and now I'm pregnant. Fuck, It's like, and it's so sad to think about it like that, but at first that's really the thought I had. Yeah, but now like I said, I think I took everything that I decided to do when I switched my approach, and I did it even more. I was
Mhm.
like, okay, what am I doing now that I don't need to be doing anymore?
Yeah.
um what am I doing that I feel like maybe it's taking longer than it should because I still have some limiting beliefs, some self-doubt, some things, some blocks, subconsciously that make me a little insecure when I implement those tasks, What are
Yeah.
things in my personal life that I feel, I could like turn up the volume a bit more up in order for me to be even more joyful and fulfilled in my current life. And so, yeah, I mean, gladly we can talk about those things, but that was the kind of like way I approach pregnancy with
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. I feel like I've been doing the same things. I think initially when I found out, there was a part of me that wanted to fight the desire to take more space. Like I wanted to be like, no, I
Yeah,
can push through this. It's just,
yeah,
it's just nausea or whatever. But I reached a point, kind of similarly to you, like towards the end of a launch where I was just like, okay, I'm actually going to sit here and think about consciously what are the things, if I knew for certain that I'm going to be so supported during this pregnancy, so supported during maternity leave, like how would I be showing up? How would I be
yeah,
approaching content? How would I be approaching, clients and boundaries and all of
yeah.
these things? And so I kind of mentally made a note, of those things. And I feel like even just doing that, like my energy shifted so much. It's like you said, I'm hosting a challenge this month, but I all of a sudden had all this, motivation to like film all of the trainings for it. And then it's just done. And I feel, and then I do have this spaciousness. So I think we could talk a little bit more too about like maybe physical things that we've made changes in that have
Hmm.
created that spaciousness. So like for me, for example, I only take calls 3 days a week. And within those 3 days, I only take 3 calls. That's one like non-negotiable that I have.
Hmm.
Even deeper into that, we made sure like during my first trimester that the calls were spread out. So if I needed to rest a little bit, I could, or I could eat,
Yeah.
or I could, whatever, take some time for myself. So we strategically like moved those calls around. So I always have these days off. We focused a lot more on my group programs, my mastermind and my NTVA over the other things like one-on-one coaching and stuff, just because obviously that is less calls on my calendar, more,
Yeah.
impact that I can create. And then we also made like the minute that I found out I was pregnant, we were like, okay, we're shifting the membership. The membership is going to be like our sole focus. So I went from a membership that I had 2 live calls a month to a membership that is no live calls, no support from me, just reprogramming focused. And so that was something that like January 1st, when I found out, I was like, we're changing this. And so the cool thing about a membership is that I've set the goal of 300 people inside, and the amount of recurring revenue that those 300 people inside would bring me without having to do anything but just, create the resources for it is
Hmm.
insane. And so I was thinking about like very specific things like that through maternity leave. And, and I made the shifts quick. I was like, we're not going to sit on this. We're just going to do it. Like we're
Yeah.
making, schedules changing. This is going, we're going to let people know that the membership no longer exists in this way. And so I took really quick action too. And I think that's also what's led to, like yesterday I was even saying, I think I had 2 or 3 client calls, and by like 2:30 I was done with work, and I just kind of
Yeah.
hung out. I took a nap. I did a hypnosis audio. I like ate some snacks. Like later in the day I watched a movie. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
have read like 8 books since January. Like those things are important to
Wow.
me. And if I can read
Yeah.
8 books, I'm like, I can take care of a baby and run
Yeah.
a business. You know what I mean? So I'm curious to
Yeah.
hear like what those things were for you too.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I think for me, there were three big things. So the first one, just like you, the offers, just prioritizing my scalable, group coaching program
Mhm.
right now and deciding to grow it even more. But obviously, since, I have this really big desire to deliver really good work, to really be present for my clients, I decided to raise the price on the group coaching program and then to have like cohorts. So add calls during the month so I can have a bigger group and like divide it into two
Yeah.
groups, and just, have set to like stronger boundaries when it comes to the Telegram chat that we have. Just making it very clear that I'm going to check in once a day, only from Tuesday to Thursdays, like no Mondays and Fridays. All of those things, like very similar to you, being very mindful as well, like to like not go over time. Sometimes I get a little excited with clients and it can go like 10-15 minutes over time, which is not a lot, but when you have a baby, I
That's love.
think it makes a big difference. So those kind of things were very important to me. And then I have also flirted with the idea of creating a membership as like a lower ticket kind of offer for sure, or at least like workshops that are a bit more creative, like where whenever I feel like there's a particular topic that really inspires me, organizing like a punctual one-time workshop, something like that, with a replay that I can sell as a masterclass later on. Like that's kind of the vibe I'm, leaning
Hmm.
into right now. And then when it comes to audience growth, I think there I've made a big shift as well. Like I was relying a lot on engagement, and although I love connecting with my community,
Yeah.
like being in the DMs, it's so much fun. I don't necessarily have or will have the time, to really look for new potential quote unquote leads. I don't like that
Yeah.
word, but you know what I mean. And I thought, okay, how do I make myself more visible in a way that I actually enjoy, that is not as time consuming?
Yeah.
And I was like, collaborations, like I've been doing them, but not as much or often as I could. And this is a perfect example of
Yeah.
like me, implementing that decision. I was like, no, actually, there's so many other people in this online space that I would love to have conversations with, where I feel like I can really, I can really like show up as an expert. And so I've been prioritizing this a lot. And in some cases, like it's been very, like it's stretching me as well,
Yeah.
like being seen, speaking about my expertise, all of that. And I've been loving it. So that's another one. And then the third one is really content. I had to be very honest with myself, and this was hard, but sometimes we just go through these ego deaths where the things we have been talking about, it's like I don't really care about this anymore, and it's working.
Mhm.
you know like I'm getting clients, like I know the quote unquote formula, like I'm so used to doing it, and so it's hard to let go of that habit. But I don't really feel connected to what I'm sharing anymore. Like, not
I
that
did the
what I'm
exact same
saying,
thing, so I'm like
yeah,
nodding.
like not that it feels wrong, like not that I'm lying or anything like that, but just like I want to go deeper, you
Hmm.
know? Like I want to share more about my story. I want to share more about like deeper thoughts, not just the surface level stuff or the strategy or things like that. And so there's been like, and I'm still in it, I'm like
Yeah.
making that shift right now of like, okay, let's talk about the things that actually light me up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing. I don't know if that's like the pregnancy brain or if it's like, but I had this whole conversation with my mentor around how, obviously a lot of my content was focused towards 20 to 30K months for entrepreneurs. And kind of that I mentioned before, all of a sudden I was just like, I don't care about that. I want people
Yeah.
to be like so safe in their business and feel the way
Yeah.
that I feel, like where I could pull away from my business in some ways and repurpose a lot of content during a mastermind launch and still be so successful and have these high income months and feel so supported and pay off debt over the years and do all these things that I've done. Like that's what I care about. And so I've started making this like very intentional shift, and I'm also still in it very much
Yeah.
so, where I'm still figuring, but I've let myself experiment with different types of content and not overthinking it as much and just
Hmm.
sharing from the heart too. And so that's
Yep.
actually where my challenge that I'm running right now, which is called Fuck the Messaging Chaos, I mentioned, that was born because I recognize that like a lot of entrepreneurs, I mean, there's so much noise in the online space around tweak this in your messaging and do this in
Yeah.
your messaging to see sales. And I was like, none of that is
And I
really true.
used to
Like,
do it. you
Yeah,
know?
same.
I'm
You
guilty
know,
of it. Like,
for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. Because you read that and then you're like, oh, I've got to make, this is how I speak to a high level buyer. This is how I do this. And you lose
Yeah.
yourself in that. And
Hmm.
so I think, I don't know if this is the case for everyone that's pregnant, but for me, pregnancy like almost brought me closer to my intuition and to
Yeah.
my like what I actually my beliefs. Like instead of just posting to just
Yeah.
post, it's like, no, does this actually align with me? So that's been interesting. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was this big thing. I don't know if that happened to you as well, but like when I first found out I was pregnant, it was this thing of like, oh, I don't care about anything else anymore.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
for sure.
I don't care about my business anymore. I don't care about anything. And it didn't last very long. But when I came back to my business, I was like, something needs to change. And just like you said, it's like it needs to be even more authentic.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's this thing of like, yeah, of course I want to help good women, talented, gifted women make more money, but it's so much bigger than that,
It's so much more
and
than that.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So no, super aligned on that, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. You do go through this moment where you're like, nothing matters but me resting, this baby being healthy, me
Yeah,
eating good food, like you go through
yeah,
that and it really puts everything into perspective because, and I think that you don't have to be pregnant to experience this, but I want everyone to know that like your life is so much bigger than your business, like
yeah.
and also I think a thought that I had recently was that if this is genuinely my life's work, which it is, this is my purpose, you know what I mean? Then why do I feel so rushed? Why do I feel like right now I need
Mm-hmm.
to hit 50 or 100K months? Like I'm going to be doing this
Mm-hmm.
forever. So I'm in it for the long haul. And that was something else that really shifted for me where it was like there's no pressure. This is all
Yeah,
just fun. This is my life's work. This is my purpose. I want to help,
yeah.
and like it took pregnancy to really make that shift for
Yeah,
me. So,
okay, that's funny
yeah.
because I kind of had thought about this like before where I was like, okay, let's release the timeline. It doesn't matter. If we know it's going to happen anyways, doesn't matter when, like that kind of mentality. But when I got pregnant, at first it was like, oh, suddenly there's a deadline. I need to achieve all of
Mhm,
those things
mhm.
before the baby arrives,
Yeah.
And like that was very, very stressful. And then again, I came back to my initial kind of mindset around
Yeah.
the timeline where I was like, no, I mean, I can take a break. I can take my maternity leave, and come back to business. Like there's going to be phases. At some point, I might want to have a second child and we'll go through that again. And like, it's just the cycles of business and life, and we
Yeah.
have to be able to honor them.
Yeah. So my pressure that I was talking about before came down to not I have to have everything done before maternity leave, but it was like this, oh my gosh, I need to have, this much in save. Like I had all these like
Yeah.
savings goals and money goals and I need to hit, like so
Yeah.
it was less about everything needs to be done before this time. And I think this realization that I shared with you is very new because the first trimester was a lot of that pressure around I have to make sure the mastermind's done before I give birth because, and then I was like, no, you don't. Your clients are,
Mm-hmm.
you can take a break and come back to them and they're going to be just as happy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you do kind of have to release a lot of that pressure, but I love all of this. Um, I am curious, like, as we just wrap up this conversation and stuff, one thing that you said that really resonated with me was actually enjoying your needle moving tasks. And I
Mm-hmm.
love content creation. It's something I've always loved, but I know there's a lot of people who don't like that, don't like connecting in the DMs, or, they're getting closer to loving content creation, but they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
How do you work with your clients to actually like enjoy those tasks? And even if they're in like, a period of life like us, whether it's pregnancy or they're getting married or they have a huge
Mm-hmm.
life transition or they have a lot going on in their life, sometimes that can kind of take a back burner. So I'd love to hear just like a little bit more about that too.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of when it comes to content, in terms of like immediate action, and this is something you've probably heard 1,000 times before, but honestly, for me, it was like the biggest game changer is like to stop following, scrolling, comparing, like looking at other people's content. Like,
Yeah.
I think when you get to a place where you're confident with your content and it flows and like it's become a really like, have good habit for you, then it's easier to look at what other people are doing with this kind of distance you know, of being like, oh, I enjoy what she does without making it mean anything about yourself. But in the beginning stages, and even later on, sometimes we can go back into that comparison trap, to be honest. But like,
Mhm.
yeah, whenever you feel yourself going back into that, just always, like, this is the first rule, you know, it's like, create before you consume, create more than you consume. Like for me, following those two rules was huge. It's like, okay, I'm not going to look at what everyone else is doing before I'm going to create content. I'm
Yeah.
not going to, and you know, and I'm not going to consume more than I create. Like what I have to say is equally as important. So that was like really the first big thing in terms of actions, you know. When it comes to beliefs, I think something that really changed the game for me was to realize that your content, even though obviously it does the heavy lifting of attracting clients for you, it's not like you know, you shouldn't put all of that pressure on yourself, talking about pressure, like to sell with one post, you know.
Yeah.
And I think when I let go of that and I understood, no, actually, like, I'm building like this, you know, body of work.
Yeah.
I'm building my brand, like everything is adding up, really trusting in the compound effect, and just, you know, knowing that what I'm doing here, it's not about convincing people to work with me. It's
Yeah.
about serving my community. Like, and as I'm going to be serving with my own ideas, with my own opinions, with my own story, as I'm going to basically fulfill my purpose without even having to sign clients, right? Like, as I'm doing that, I'm bringing naturally people closer and closer to me, and I don't need to worry about being convincing, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely huge for me. And another one that I teach my clients as well is like just focusing on a few content principles instead of obsessing over details. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's a few things that are going to make content more effective for sure. You know, like strategy has its place in business, but if you overcomplicate it, then you are definitely watering down your voice, your message, and then you feel so constrained that it kills your creativity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've really simplified content to the max for my
Yeah.
clients, where there's like just a few principles. I know that you do the same. Yeah, and I think that's key.
Yeah. I love what you said around a body of work, because I always tell my clients, like, when someone online says one post brought them in X amount of clients or whatever, you have to
It's not
realize
true.
that it's not true. That every post, like, if you think about the buyer journey, that's not even how content works, and it's
Yeah,
not true. It's exactly what you said, the compound effect of, you know, their last 50 posts coming together, and, you know, maybe that being the thing that someone needed to hear today to reach out to them.
yeah,
And so I love that takes off so much pressure for everyone, I think, to just be
yeah,
like, this one post doesn't have to bring in X amount of sales or follows or whatever. Like, it is a body of work. It's my purpose. It's, you know, a living and breathing
yeah,
embodiment of me. So I love that. And yeah, content can be so simple, and that's, I like what I bring in for my clients as well too. So it doesn't have to be this crazy, you know, I don't know, strategy that takes you 17 hours. And it can literally just be unfiltered thoughts and, you know, sharing core desires and sharing parts of your framework. Like, it gets to be simple. So I love that. So I know that you have, I was just looking at your form, you have, and you briefly talked about your program, the Estelle
yeah.
Entrepreneur, which I love how you brought your name into that. It's such a good name. And it's a year-long coaching program, right?
Yes,
I would love for you to just, you know, if you want to plug that coaching program or talk about how people can find you, or any of that, that would be fun.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at your coach Estelle. I will send you the link so you can put it in the show notes for the program. Um, but yeah, this is the culmination of everything I have been through, like everything I have learned, the best of the strategy and the best of
Yeah.
mindset, energetics, you know, like the mindset shifts I had to learn, or experience in order to enjoy every single piece of my business, as well as my subconscious reprogramming framework, that I use on myself, on my clients. Like that is all included in there. Like honestly, it's my everything, this program. So yeah, if you're interested in joining, if you are, this is particularly specifically for coaches. If you're a coach, and you would like to go from maybe, you're between 0 and 2K a month, and you would like to go about 5K to 10K months without the hustle, with very simple strategy, with subconscious beliefs that to support you in growing your business. Like this is the place to be for you. And I made it a year long because I really believe that long-term mentorship is life changing.
Yeah,
And
I
I know
agree.
your programs are long as well, because yeah, working with one person for an extended amount of time just makes such a bigger difference than like hopping from one strategy or coach to
Hmm.
another. So this is
Yeah.
this is why. Yeah.
Letting go of like shiny object syndrome and just
Yes.
really doubling down. Yeah. And also like there's pressure, when you join a 3-month program, what results am I going to see in 3 months?
Yeah.
And I think when you have time, it releases that pressure. The whole thing we're talking about,
Exactly. Yes.
So yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah. I love that. Well, this has been awesome. I'm excited to share this, obviously, when I've announced my pregnancy. But do you have any last little, like, I don't know, wisdom or things you want to share? Anything that's like come up recently for your clients that you feel like would be
Mm.
cool to share to your audience or to my audience or anything like that, that comes to
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah, I think something that my clients love every time, it's this thing of like when they're completely overthinking what to do, their decisions, don't know what to do next in their business. I always, approach it from this place of like, what do you want? What do you want? And then what are the beliefs right now that you have that keep you from you believing it's possible for you to have it right now, and let's look at that before making any strategic tweaks, overcomplicating things. Like, listen to your desires, and be very honest with yourself and own your desires. And if you have bigger goals or smaller goals, it's fine. Like, you don't need to have the same goals as everyone else in the online space. You don't need to be doing the same thing. Like, in this stage of life, what do you want your business to look like and feel like? And then, follow that. Like, align your thoughts with that plan, like with that vision.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because we forget to lead with desire a lot of the time. We're so
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
monetary focused. So that's huge. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And for everyone that is listening, we'll have Estelle's links below. I think we have a free offering from you, and then your coaching program, your website, your Instagram. We'll link all of that below so people can reach out to you. And yeah, this has been awesome. I love this combo.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.